somewhat different. It's not a space marine. He's an orc. He's an ugly git as well. How's it going, my friends, and welcome back to Solid Scale Models and the Warhammer series. So, as I said in the last episode, I was waiting for some new figures to come in the post. Literally, after doing my intros and outros, the postman turned up with one of the new figures. And we are going to be looking at an orc. It's going to be new for me because I've never done any orcs, and it's something actually I've always wanted to do, but I've just been a bit scared of doing because I'm not very good at doing skin tones, and green skin is something I've completely never even tried or even thought about doing. So we are going to be looking at Ghazghkull Thraka in this episode, and of course me attempting to do some green skin, and as a little bit of a last minute thing, I've added something else into the model. So I'm not going to tell you, we're going to get into the video, so grab yourself a brew and a bicky and let's see what comes up. So with this one, this was a bit of a new learning curve for me because I've never done anything other than sort of a flesh skin colour, and even then I'm not overly good at that one. But I started off with a very dark green base coat, which was probably a bit too green really, because it took quite a few passes to cover that. But as you can see there, I started off with the tongue because of the way they have sculpted this figure to go together, so that made things a hell of a lot easier trying to paint that. As you can see, I started off with quite a dark red and just adding a little bit of white. Did the same around for his gums there as well. But yeah, so like I said, that green was probably too dark to start with, so it did take at least 5 or 6 passes with the relatively lighter green, because I didn't want to bump it up too hard too quickly, because it might not have worked out all that well. But all the time, when I'm happy with the layer, just add a little bit of yellow into it, and by the time we're getting to this point, I'm sort of kind of just doing a little bit on the edges, a little bit of dots and dashes there as well. So by this point, it's not like a full covering, it's just sort of little dots and dashes there, which help just sort of pick out areas on the skin. I didn't realise until a bit later on that he's actually got like a helmet on, but I thought, well, I actually quite liked him as he was, and I'd spent that much time doing the skin. I was actually quite happy with it as it is, so I just left it with that. So moving on to the body, if you like. I'd already sprayed it black, but I had realised that I wasn't really going to be able to cover the other parts that I didn't want to black, because like his part of his hands and his shoulder pads and elbows and knee pads are going to be red, as you can see there. So it's just a lot easier to mask that off and then spray that red on. So before I started getting into any kind of real detail, I kind of blocked everything in. So for some of the steel that I got around his feet and this exhaust power pack thing, I just dry brushed this over with a steel. The back, actually, I mixed in a bit of gunmetal and then went over, dry brushed over it with a steel just to pick out a few, a few highlights there. So once I got all that done, I sort of started on some of the smaller details before again going on to edge highlighting. So as you can see, just started off with the skull on his metal loincloth. So yeah, so just doing out all the small little details. again, mainly sort of still kind of blocking some of these parts in, so I can go in later with some scratches and again the highlighting. So the wiring here, I was actually just going to just sort of kind of give it a light sort of, I would say dry brush. It's not really a dry brush, but sort of just lightly go over the wires with the white, and then just go around the cable cover in sort of a blacky grey rubber type colour. But I decided that was a little bit too plain, so I decided to sort of put some coloured wires in there. Just try and make this just to look a little bit more interesting, rather than just having boring grey white, wires showing through. So yeah, so it was a nice, I felt like it was a nice little ad there as well. Again, just to generate the interest. But as you can see, I'm now painting that wire covering that sort of rubbery grey type colour. So moving on to the edge highlighting, because his main armour is predominantly black, so I went in with a dark grey, and then once that had dried out, as you can see what I'm doing here is I went over with slightly lighter grey, nearly almost white, but not quite, and particularly around some of the predominant parts, not so much around this area, but areas like here. This was more of sort of stippling sort of fashion, so it gives it kind of look like a little bit more texture, a little bit more of a scratch look. I also did with this colour add a few scratches in the sort of flatter areas again, just to try and make it look a lot more worn and actually been through something. With the red, I actually started with the exact same colour as I used to spray paint it. Now it didn't really make, as you can kind of tell, it doesn't really make all that much difference, but when you spray paint colours, sometimes they come out slightly differently. Now it does actually, when you actually look at it in real life, you can actually see that that red there. So in the end, it actually worked out okay. But again, just adding a little bit of white in there and going around everything all over again, and again sort of dots and dashes, to give that scratch look. I also went over again with some steel colour to make those scratches look a little bit deeper, and then once all that was done, I gave the whole model a wash with, as always, Tamiya's accent panel liner. I used the dark brown, and across the claws there, as you can see, I wiped the majority of it off on the flats with a cotton bud. For the back, I actually used AK's engine wash, and just pretty much slapped that all over the back, and then I went in with a slightly damped brush with some white spirits on, and just moved it around a little bit and pushed it a bit more into the creases. I didn't want to take it all off. I just wanted to take a kind of like the vast majority of it, and again just pushing it into the sort of recesses and crevices in the model. Now I imagine that these exhausts and these things weren't exactly efficient and eco-friendly, so I decided to use some black pigment around those exhausts, and just sort of went and going over a little bit more, just so it looks like it really kicks out a lot of dirt and black nasty smoke. I also use the same pigment around the stubbers as well to give them some sort of smoke residue. Now, when I started this model, I didn't realise or know, but I noticed there was these little lights on the inside of his chin guard. So I had some of these micro LEDs. They're actually a very bright white, but I didn't want to use a bright white, and I didn't want to get any other ones. So I used some Tamiya Clear orange and just painting that over the top of the LED. And then what I did was, because I wasn't sure if it was going to fit very well as it was with the wire, so I just dug a couple of channels in with a drill, and then just super glued the wires into place. I then later on painted them black to hide them a little bit more. Now we also, at the very last minute, decided to put a light in to the gun arm, because it's like the little power box sign on the side of it. And there was a little bit of a, I don't even know what it was, but it was a little pokey, sticky outy thing. So I cut that out, drilled it, drilled a hole in, and then drilled down the arm. It took quite a while to get that right, and then feed it through. So it was a bit of a pain in the backside to do. Something I should have probably thought about in the first place. Would have made things a lot easier. As you can see, I drilled a hole through the side of his torso that I could feed it through. Also drilled a hole up the side of his leg, which again, probably something I could have done with thinking about in the first place, but I didn't. You know, live and learn. You know, so everything was fed down the side of his leg. I also put a resistor in there as well, just in case, because I wasn't really 100% sure if I really needed it. I did it anyway. The base there, the back part of that actually comes within the kit. So does obviously the base. But as you can see, I drilled a hole down the side there to feed that wire in, and then it was just literally just feeding it through and then gluing him to the base. You can also see the butchery I made in a little while at the bottom of the base to try and get the battery unit to fit in. Again, something I didn't really think out very well. I didn't really fancy making a big base for this at the bottom. I just wanted to leave on the standard base that it comes with. So fortunately there's a bit of a crevasse in the bottom of the original base that it comes with. As you can see there's the battery unit, which takes two of these button batteries, and they just slot in there, and obviously powers the entire lighting system thing that I've butchered into this model. Yeah, so all that was left to do then now was solder all the wires onto the battery unit, and jobs are good. So it's back to me, and I'll show you the finished model in just a second. Okay guys, it's nearly time to reveal the entire finished model. I hope you have enjoyed this episode. I hope you are enjoying the series. Please let me know what you think of it and what I've been doing in the comments section down below. Also, if there's something that you'd like to see me attempt to tackle, also please put that down there as well. So again, I hope you have enjoyed. If you're new around here and you like what you're seeing, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. Also, if you put bell notifications on, that will tell you when the next episode is out and ready. Also, if you guys would also like to continue helping to support me, which you guys already do just by subscribing and liking the channel, and also you just follow me on Facebook and Instagram. If you'd like to go a little bit further, there are links in the description down below to support me and the channel. So anyway, that's me babbling. Again, I'd just like to say thank you so much again for all the support, and here's the finished model.